All right, guys, today the garage is empty. No RX7, no R8, and that's because the cars are in the trailer. And why are the cars in the trailer? Because they're all broken. Let's get these cars strapped down and we're gonna head over to Damien's. A little bit longer than a 20-minute drive. It was raining pretty bad, but I don't know where I'm gonna put this giant trailer. Maybe just up here up front. Look at that, maybe you can see in the reflection. Look at this guy, he's just staring like, what the hell is that thing? He's doesn't look very happy. This is genuine. First of all, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate it. And like
you're a part of the sucking you into the family now. You in.
I've never bought a car and then felt like I'm part of a family. And Andy, I'll send him a text just like,
sure.
Hey, this happened and then whatever, we fixed it.
Yeah.
But the car performed awesome. And he'll send me like 10 paragraphs.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, dude,
yeah.
I feel bad because I feel almost like he feels obligated to, but
right.
He's just been super cool.
In those scenarios, you're getting kind of a lot of the brain dump that he and I have done
over 20 years.
Yeah, 20 plus years
yeah.
of running the cars. I think for me, obviously, goes all the way back to 1998, 97.
So, yeah, can you, obviously you have like a lot of RX7s, and we've talked a little bit about it before.
Yeah.
But can you go over like some of this stuff really quick?
Yeah, I'll give you a little highlight. So this is kind of like the mini like wall of shame I have over here. Now, this a lot is the history of this going through the progression of taking the car way back and starting with open lapping.
Yeah.
And then slowly progressing into time trials and then into racing. And this is like some of the things, you know, I saved things like the noses. One of them is from NASA Nationals way back 2007. And then doing time trials. And then one lap of America. And then the rim is the first time I ever was hit on track during a wheel-to-wheel race from a Miata. So I had to save that rim, yeah.
This thing is insane.
Yeah, I can't wait to bring it back to life. There's, so here's the, I'll give you just a kind of a quick overview of the big projects coming out of the space that we have here. So, this is how I name them. One of them is called Revive the 95.
Yeah.
So that's my Montego Blue 95. My street queen, I call her now.
My street.
And she's got almost 100,000 miles on it. For those of you that talk about rotaries, whatever. Whoa. That's an uncracked stock motor.
That's crazy.
Okay. On twins, I kept the twin sequential system in there. On a stock radiator. Right? And that thing has probably half its miles are hard track miles.
Yeah.
Brainerd, MAM, it's been, right? I tracked the heck out of that thing. So yeah, almost 100,000 miles on it now. So I'm going to pull the engine on that and refresh all the seals and everything on it because now's the right time to do it.
Yeah.
So that's Revive the 95. This project is called Back to the Track. 20B Back to the Track. So obviously this car has a lot of history with all the racing that I've done with it, the one lap, all that kind of stuff. But now it's been gone from the scene for, you know, 8+ years, 10+ years. So the goal is to just get it back on the track and have it be the yellow monster again. And then of course we have the other project over here, which I call FD in GLTC.
Oh yeah.
So up to this point, I haven't seen an FD chassis run in Grid Life GLTC. There's been a lot of FD theirs, but I haven't seen, and I could be wrong by the way, but in all the races that I've seen, I've never seen an FD in the GLTC series racing.
Yeah.
In the other series and in the time trials, I've seen it. And so what I'm going to try to do is be the first FD chassis in the GLTC racing series, and then develop the car, right? Just get it in there, start racing. And then start developing the car to try to turn it into a podium level car.
GLTC, which I want to do.
Yeah.
It depends if my wallet is big enough next year.
Sure.
But That's the plan. A buddy of mine's like, run the GR because you could get a whole driving car for $7,000.
Sure.
You can't even get a bare shell for
Exactly.
you know.
It's
So
a different thing. It's a different thing.
yeah, it's a whole nother thing racing an FD, but it is a great platform. So I think it's almost like cheating.
Well, with GLTC, it's funny. A lot of like top runners are like Civic, sedan bodies, and all kinds. Now they've had a lot of work done to them.
Yeah.
But I have like an old Honda Civic, and I'm like, wait a minute, I should just take this old Honda Civic and just set that up, throw some tires on it, and run it.
But it's a Civic. It's like my buddy's like, you should run the GR. I'm like, yeah, but it's a
exactly,
GR. It's not an RX7.
The FD is a different thing, and I think it'd be really cool to have an actual competitive running FD in the Grid Life GLTC series.
Yeah, this is great. I love this garage. I'm gonna title this video like every man's dream garage or something, because this thing is just, I remember when I walked in here last time, I was just like, oh my gosh, this thing.
Yeah, it is kind of an epic man cave.
Yeah,
and then the funny thing is these guys are doing their Tesla stuff and whatever, but remember, you know, Chad and Andy over here, they were FD and RX7 guys.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Chad with his FDs.
Something happened along the way.
Yeah, they're doing some fun stuff with the.
They left the dark side.
But yeah, so it's like people now at the One Lap and stuff, they see them with the Plaid stuff, and they think of them as the Tesla EV guys. But the reality is that they were rotary
first
RX7 guys first. Yeah. And then the Cosmo,
which is
that's Chad's like
insane.
Like I call it the unicorn. I mean, it's the. To find a Cosmo in that kind of condition and that setup. Yeah. He has it all set up, you know, full, the 20B still in there with a single turbo system. He's got it set up proper.
Yeah, this is just insane. This thing's great. Should we prop up my sorry car?
So the reason why he's here is he was at the track and some stuff might have went down, and we're gonna debug and see if we can figure out like what's going on with his car. So he brought it to probably the best place.
The best place to bring it to,
in terms of third gen and rotary, knowledge base.
Let's get it open. So I bought, in preparation for this, I bought a fuel pump.
Okay.
And my buddy's been trying to convince me to go E85, so I bought an E85 compliant fuel pump.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, I'm already there. It costs like a couple bucks more. And then I got a fuel filter because the fuel's at 30 PSI. Idling. I don't know, and we might have to, I don't know if you want to compression test it first really quick.
Yeah, let's do a couple things. There's a handful of things I'd like to do. That sounds very low. Fuel pressure for idle.
Yeah. It's
like really low.
And so I changed the plugs on the track. And I'm gonna get my backpack and my stuff in here. Get my tripod out. I changed the spark plugs on the track, and it did not fix anything.
The one issue that is a little concerning to me just out of the rip is at idle.
It sounds rough.
It sounds rough.
Yeah.
And if it didn't sound rough at idle, then I'd be like, it's most likely not something internal with the motor.
Yeah.
But the fact that it sounds a little rough at idle, even with your fuel pressure low,
because it's idling, it shouldn't require that much.
It shouldn't really affect the personality of the idle.
Yeah.
Right?
Sounds like I'm gonna be in a world of hurt.
Well, we're gonna find out.
Hopefully it's just a loose connector on one of the spark plugs or something.
Yeah, here's the thing is that until we do a compression test to actually really rule out if it's a seal or something like that, there's a handful of things that could cause it to idle like that. One of them is obviously if it's missing a coil, something like you're not actually getting all the.
It was actually misfiring or something.
Yeah,
instead of
not firing.
Yeah,
right? You have a dead coil or something like that. So that could cause it to idle like that. We also need to check probably for like vacuum leaks or anything like that. I don't know if you looked at your vacuum at all.
No, I haven't.
Is there a boost gauge in there somewhere?
Yeah, the boost is reading. Oh, there is something I did notice, and that is that this seal is bad. I don't want to touch it because it's hot. You see this guy right here?
Yeah, yep.
But it's the exhaust side. It's already past the turbo. So I didn't think, and a couple people that I talked to didn't think that would really affect it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna just say some stuff.
Oh, God.
And then good, bad, or whatever. I'm just gonna dump some information out. So one thing that is true from just an acute standpoint is that if that gasket's like gone or blown or whatever, and we're talking about a healthy motor already, then yes, that wouldn't make the idle go like that. However, when you're on the track, if an exhaust seal blows and is shooting hot exhaust directly towards the intake, you're creating a localized hot spot. Huge hot spot, which means the air going in is not the same temperature in that localized hot spot as like the generalized air that you would assume is coming out of the intercooler, for example.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean that it changed air temperature enough to cause a lean, blah blah blah, or detonation? Like, you know, there's a handful of things in there that are speculative until you actually check.
But I've heard people talk about if you get a certain spot of the motor too hot, that it can like melt the seal or something.
Yeah, that would be pretty extreme from where that is. I mean, to melt a seal or something like that. But at the same time,
I guess you never know, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, a lot of these things are speculative, but looking at where that is, it'd be totally different if the seal blew on the outside and was shooting out into your car engine bay. Yeah. Because then it's not actually creating a localized hotspot on the intake runners, right? So that looks like it looks like it's hard to tell from here, but it looks like it might be blown on the side.
Yeah, it's kind of. I think it's all around, honestly. Because this is definitely
it's gone. Yeah. So. Again, a lot of that's just going to be speculation, but it's definitely not ideal. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
it's not ideal. Not ideal if your exhaust gasket is blown such that the extreme, exhaust of the rotary that the rotaries make is now shooting on your intake.
Yeah.
Right, runners, and it's like obviously in a bad place because it's literally shooting exhaust right before the air goes in.
Yeah.
Now again, how much temperature is that going to change on the air and blah blah blah, and is that enough to cause a thing? These are all not, unless you have all the data, it's very speculative, but not good. So that's something obviously to get sorted out. The other thing though is I do think we should run it at idle and look at the vacuum. A slight vacuum leak anywhere, it will cause the idle to run rough as well.
Yeah. Yeah, which with the age of the hoses, I guess it could be.
Well, most of these are silicone.
And they look pretty healthy. They don't look like they're dry rot or anything.
Typically, what happens is just one will just pop off somewhere and you don't see it.
Oh.
And then you're trying to trace down why it's running crappy, and it's just because a hose popped off somewhere.
Yeah.
You're like, the vacuum is.
Do you have like lights or anything?
Yeah.
Lights that we can put in here? All right, so we decided that we're gonna put it on jack stands and do a compression test first. Luxury. Yeah. All right, so we have the spark plugs out and we have a compression tester. Next. So I have to plug this part in. Okay. All right, so the machine is connected to the front and we got to disconnect the fuel. That would be bad. I've almost done.
We don't want combustion happening. We don't want actual combustion happening.
And that's just
It should just be a real hole.
I think you can just.
Yeah, it should pop out.
There you go.
Put this back here temporarily so we don't lose it.
Just because if I'm around, stuff goes missing really quickly. It's just there's this weird thing when I set something down, I walk away for 5 minutes, and when I come back, it's gone.
Right. Now, if we want to be real safe about it, we could disconnect the ignition harness, right? Because this is there. I used to run one of these too on my. And so, if you can get your hands in there, it might be worthwhile.
Is it that little plug right here?
Yeah.
This side.
All right, moment of truth on rotor 1, front rotor.
God.
Take the top. Well, you want to come take a look?
I feel like you would tell me if it was bad. You would say something.
It's not
Oh,
good.
no.
It's not good.
No, that's not good at all.
Yep. Now, there's levels of good and bad. And most rotary people have dealt with blown engines, and of course Andy and I, we've been, right? And we know how to make engines reliable too, right? I've done multiple seasons on motors, but we've also had things go wrong as we change stuff. And it's typically when you change stuff or something, or there's like a combination of things like with your car that like might have been happening. But according to that reading, what it was showing me, right? 113, 114, those are actually decent.
Yeah, those are good numbers. Yeah.
Obviously, the last number is not.
No.
But if it was an apex seal, you would have 2 low numbers. So what this is telling me is that I don't think it's an apex seal. I think it's either a side seal or corner seal. If it was a corner seal, it would have to be such that it's only affecting one face. Because this is only one face low.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
I'm gonna write these numbers
not the
down.
worst. At least the case, because if it was the case that was like,
an apex seal usually is always worse scenario.
but if it was like I've seen somewhere the housing, the outside is all scuffed. If it was the outside that was scuffed, then all the numbers would be relatively low. Okay, so that's not the worst thing. It sounds like, at least from that case, that side.
And those 2 numbers are actually pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen
actually pretty good
people put like 105 compressions and say that's
good.
a, you know.
Yeah, like that's surprising. That's those first.
So.
The good numbers are surprisingly good.
Yeah.
Just that the one number is bad.
It's a bittersweet because it's like, I have to rebuild the motor, which is terrible, but I get to film it, rebuilding a motor, and possibly ruining it even more than if I was to take it to somebody.
All right, let's just get the number down. I think it was 79.
Not terrible, but I feel like if that was the worst of it, it wouldn't be running as bad as it is.
Oh no, absolutely.
Because it's like sputtering. It's like when you're accelerating, you would think, okay.
absolutely
I'm not an expert. You're more of an expert.
No,
you're
no,
way
that-
more of an expert
No,
than I am.
if you're low on one face,
Okay.
that would absolutely cause what you're experiencing.
Well, well, I guess I gotta go down and connect the next one.
Yeah, let's do the other one. I want the other
All right,
one.
connect to the rear housing.
So what I'm describing is oftentimes, like when we talk about a seal went bad, there's a huge spectrum between what that means. So just to give you a quick kind of summary of like what it looks like is, obviously this tells us that something is wrong internally in the motor, right? You're getting one entire face with low compression.
Yeah.
Again, this means that it's not an apex seal, because if an apex seal went, you would get low on 2 faces, right? Because that's what's separating the 2 faces is the apex seal. So most likely this is either a corner seal or a side seal. Now, the spectrum that's involved there is, and we've had this happen, Andy and I have been through this before, even on his engine and other engines, right? Is that it might literally be nothing other than replacing that seal. Meaning that there's no damage to the housing, right? You got lucky, and that, like, for example, if it's a side seal, it could have cracked, but the pieces are in there. They're not tumbling around, destroying
the housing itself,
right?
yeah.
That's usually rough with an apex seal. If it's one of the seals that will break instead of bend, right? And now they're in there, and then it destroys your housing. It destroys your turbo. It comes out. It destroys the propeller, right? So there's a spectrum there. Now, so this might mean, until you pull the engine apart, you don't know, but it might mean that literally everything's fine. You pull it apart, you replace that seal, you put it back together, and then you're good to go. And then you go trace and fix whatever you thought led to this happening.
Causing that.
Exactly.
So, but while I have it open, should I not just replace everything?
No, oftentimes you don't want to do that if there's still a lot of life left on those seals, because those seals are now
embedded in. They're like formed a certain way.
Exactly.
To like,
right? You don't have to do any break-in with new seals and all that stuff or whatever. So, and there, I don't think there's a ton of miles on the seals and stuff he has in there.
I don't think so.
So again, and part of what tells me that everything is pretty good
Is those two.
Those numbers are pretty good,
So
man.
that good indication that the housing and maybe the rotor itself is good.
and the seals.
And
the
relatively
rest of the
99% of the seals
Yeah.
that are in that
Yeah, yeah.
in that housing.
99.9, whatever.
Yeah.
Because whatever, this literally could be
Just that
cracked
one.
side seal,
Yeah.
cracked corner seal.
Okay.
That might be
For now.
really
So that's
good.
pretty good. It could
You
get
don't know
a
until you pull the motor apart, but there's a spectrum of good and bad.
yeah,
right?
but it could get a lot worse with the rear one.
I've seen where an apex seal goes, it destroys the housing, the turbo,
Yeah.
line, it destroys.
Okay, so we're gonna move it from the front housing to the rear housing, and hopefully hopefully they're all good. But worst case, hopefully it's worst case, something like that. So,
Right, yeah.
all right, let's get those moved. What's funny is I think Andy had told me that.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, he had said to swap that specific gasket to V-band, but I would have thought just swap the turbo out because the turbo's really old.
Yeah, but
I think it's fine.
those turbo it might be fine.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure is it a GTX 35R?
I looked in the documents he sent me. I didn't see the turbo info.
Okay.
But I'm sure I could ask him and he'd be like, yeah.
Turbo might be.
I told him the battery went out and he
9 times.
dug up the receipt for the battery with the warranty
Sure,
info and
right.
everything. I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Sounds like, yep.
He's like, yeah, I bought it like 2 years ago. I was like, do you have the receipt? He
got
sent it
all
to me.
this stuff.
Yeah,
That's nice.
it's pretty good. All right, so crank it. It's on the rear seal, the rear housing. Is it called a housing? Rear rotor. It's on the rear rotor now. We're gonna find out.
Because there's 2 irons sandwiching it in the housing.
All right, so it takes a while to give you the numbers, right?
Yeah, it builds up a thing, so you
Okay.
keep cranking it until
Okay.
it's
Okay. All right, we're going.
Yep. Okay. This looks better.
Okay.
Again, some really good numbers here.
Oh, those are, yeah.
Rear rotor is fine.
122, 115, 119. Yeah.
No, was it 112? Did I write it down wrong? 112, right? Let's see. I might have wrote it there. Let's see. Let's go through all the different.
122.
Oh,
yeah.
122.
That seems kind of high.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, granted, again, do we have it at full operating temp and all this?
Yeah,
other
yeah,
bullshit?
so-
No, but what I care about is the relative numbers to each other.
Yeah.
Not the absolute number. If we wanted to test whether you should rebuild the whole motor and all the seals are shot, then you would do all the things to get your absolute number as accurate as you could get it to determine, like, okay, the whole motor is worn out. We need to.
Yeah.
Let's do it. But these numbers are good. These numbers are good. This is the only thing that needs to be fixed. Again, bittersweet type thing. If it was an apex seal, different story. Probably damage some stuff in there. Might need new housing, whatever. You cross your fingers hoping that it doesn't. But this most likely didn't do other damage, especially when these numbers are this good.
Yeah.
Because of course, if you damage
It's gonna ruin the whole thing.
these numbers are gonna be low too, and it's gonna.
All right.
So it looks like my diagnosis as Rotary Jesus.
Rotary
Rotary
Jesus.
Jesus diagnosis.
I was gonna say the Midwest Rob Dam.
That's
Rob
right,
Dom.
yeah.
Midwest Rob Dom.
I joke that it's Rob Damian.
Rob
Yeah,
Dom. Yeah.
And from a parallel universe. My Rotary Jesus diagnosis is that it's I put it in a priority list of side seal and then corner seal.
Yeah.
It's one of those side
Nice.
seals.
I'm gonna refer back to this when I'm taking it apart, and I'll be like,
Yeah. Exactly.
he called it.
Well, I mean, you might end up taking it. Might end up going apart here, depending on what you're gonna do.
Yeah, I know. I can't even think about that. What do you think dropping a motor and rebuilding it would take?
I mean, Andy and I have done it in weekends. It's not because we've been, right? I remember, I think at one point in time, like one of my motors I did like in a weekend years ago. I think at one point in time we found like a side or corner seal on like the rear, and we did that in a weekend.
Yeah.
if you have like a dedicated time window, it's actually not that.
Yeah, if you're like, we're just gonna spend Saturday, Sunday working on it.
The time ends up being all the peripheral stuff.
Yeah.
It's more than the actual like time of like the engine.
Yeah.
Because you got to pull all the stuff off it, around it, and then you're trying to organize it all and put all the bolts. But once you get to the actual engine, it's not that crazy.
The only thing that would keep me from rebuilding sooner is that I don't have the oil pan yet.
Yeah, sure.
That's the only thing.
I got one sitting right
Is it the exact same?
Exact same.
Oh.
Yeah. That's what I was saying. I was already there in my head. I'm like, he's got to do something here. The limiting thing would be the oil pan.
Yeah.
Because if you're gonna take them all apart, you're not gonna not do those. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I got one sitting in a bucket over there. That one was gonna go on the 95.
Yeah.
But that's the reason why I ordered another one. We were talking about it because I need one for the GLT.
Oh yeah.
That's why I have another one coming. But there's no urgency like I have, so.
We'll have to talk about it and see.
Yeah, we can chat on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so here's the kind of list in your head maybe that I would suggest is, the motor has to come out, and that has to do with like your timing and all that stuff you talked about. But in general, for the car and the car's healthy, getting back running again, it would just be a matter of getting the motor apart, replacing whichever seals are shot. Obviously, once you pull the motor apart, you'll know if there was more downfall, right? Like in other words, did it score the front iron, or did it damage the housing that you have to replace those, right? But in my opinion, based upon these other numbers and what it looks like when you take the motor apart, is I wouldn't do. This is not like a full seal, full thing, whatever. It's just replace this and you're golden again, in my opinion. Again, you won't know until you.
Yeah, disclaimer.
Yeah, disclaimer.
So just in case this video.
If you open the engine and you're shot, then you got it.
I just feel like people. Well, have you heard of monoxide? So I was on his podcast, and it's funny. You go through the comments, and anytime anybody that's an expert on something says something, there's people in the comments like crazy that are like, this guy's wrong, this guy sucks, we should go murder him in his house. And you're just like,
that's why you see me couching everything with full disclaimer, don't listen to me, listen to your doctor.
I'm an idiot, but I don't know, but I'm an idiot, so.
Even though I fucking whatever, but don't listen to me, listen to the guy who's never run around.
Yeah, the couch guy.
Exactly, and then the list should be, okay, that needs to happen because we have to refresh this, so now we have some information that tells us that path. But then now it's to add that into the list of if I'm rebuilding the engine, I'm gonna add in
go through everything.
New fuel filter, new air filter, new this, all the engines apart. Maybe I go get the V-band done on the turbo, so I don't have to worry about this dumb gasket again. All that kind of stuff you can lay out in a plan, and then have it so that it can all come together.
Do the ECU.
Done. And I don't know if you want to still kind of run it relatively in this range and stuff. You probably don't need to do a full electronics or ECU.
I just like the idea of having everything on one dash.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming, I don't know, I'm probably an idiot.
Sure.
I'm assuming the hull techs and the fuel techs, have like warnings. So if you can set like, if my PSI goes above 15, give me like a big red thing.
They do.
I was at Road America, and I haven't posted this video yet, even though it happened a month ago. I was at Road America, and off of the boost controller or something like that, vacuum line came off.
Sure.
And so the turbo was hitting like 30 PSI.
Right,
And I didn't realize it for half a lap. That's probably where some of that came from.
Maybe,
I did about half to maybe a full lap of just 30 PSI into the motor.
Sure.
And I didn't know, because when you're racing, you're not really paying attention to the gauges too much.
Unless the big red light is saying you're not in.
And so I feel like on the street, I actually pay attention on the street to the gauges a lot more, because you're more casually driving. So I feel like a hull tech or a fuel tech or whatever would have saved me.
You can set the oil pressure,
would have saved me.
Fuel drop, drop. You do all those things,
I also money shifted it last week.
Yeah.
I don't.
And that might be.
I was trying to leave that out till the end, but I did on the drag strip money shift it
second gear or something?
From third to second, and I dropped the clutch really quickly. And the revs flew up to past what it can count. So that's probably what ended me.
That might have done it too.
On top of the 30 pounds, on top of the exhaust thing, on top of
good punches. He did some jujitsu on
this car. People want to talk shit about the car, and I've gotten a lot of shit about it leaking oil and all this stuff. The leaking oil, it's an oil pan. I'm waiting for the oil pan. It's an easy fix. Well, you have to take the subframe apart, but
Yeah.
you know, it's something that's really not that bad, or it's unreliable. But I feel like we went to Brainerd once.
Yeah.
We did autocross, drag strip. We did HPD all day.
Yeah.
We did the standing start challenge all day.
Yep.
We did Road America, pretty much 2 days of just straight driving around Road America, one whole day and maybe one half day. We did RPM all day. I'm talking 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. The car almost did not stop going around the track.
Yeah.
And then we did Brainerd again, plus autocross sessions. And I feel like any car put through that, plus the money shift, plus the 30 PSI, and I'm an idiot and I don't know how to drive.
Yeah.
And I feel like any car going through that would have probably broken before this.
Yeah, I'll tell you what.
Catastrophically compared to this, I feel.
Yeah, and that's a right perspective to have on it, because I'll tell you what, to piggyback on that same sentiment, every issue I've ever had with my race cars, I've spun bearings, I've blown seals, I've done it all, right? Has always been my fault.
Yeah.
If I really look back on it and look back at the data and look back at what was happening, spun a bearing, I ran the oil line. It was my fault, right?
Yeah.
Blew a seal, I go back and look and I'm like, oh crap, it's like one time I remember the hose thing happened. Like we put pressure both sides on the wastegate control and
Yeah.
the boost went up to 28, but
Yeah.
it was not my fault, right? So when I look at all those scenarios, it ends up being, when you really dig into it, the rotary is whatever, this and that, and it's weak.
It's not the rotary's fault.
Not really. If you set them up right and run them right and everything's running as it's supposed to be, they kind of do their thing.
Yeah.
And they just jam. And it's
Which
great.
is,
Yeah.
I've been contemplating endurance racing.
Yeah.
I don't know if this
Good.
is the car to do 10-hour races in, but
Well, part of what I'm setting this car up for, even though I'm going to uncork it and do crazy time trial stuff, I'm actually going to set it up for endurance type racing because that's what I want to be able to do.
yeah,
in the end.
yeah. Something Dog Racing does it at Brainerd.
Well, yeah, there's a couple different series that I want to run that would be, a true endurance where you're switching drivers or refueling, you're doing the full thing, right?
Yeah, which I want to do too, and we'll see how to make that work in the next year. Which is why I'm getting into like starting those new other businesses, because I'm becoming very poor very quickly this year. I was feeling very good beginning of this year after buying an RX7, a race trailer, having an R8. I'm like,
all this
not
stuff
good.
is the wallet flattener for sure.
Yeah, so I think that's it, right?
Yeah.
We kind of know what's going on. The fuel pressure, I can see the fuel pressure. I can see it's low, so probably just go through the pump and everything and blow the lines out or make sure that's good. Replace the filter on my time whenever I get to. Yeah, if it wasn't for your compression tester.
Yeah, that's the reason why I do that first, because we would have done 10 other things and none of it would have been.
I would have taken the check valve off of the like the normal compression testers.
Yeah, right.
I would have taken the check valve out of that and just like with a slow motion camera, or something, get the needle and get like a good idea. So I was already gonna do that, and I was like, let me just ask Damien if he has a compression tester by any chance before I mess with that. Would have made for a fun video, but I'm not trying to have that much fun right now.
Yeah.
We're already having too much fun taking cars apart. But yeah, that's it.
Cleanup time.
Appreciate it. Yeah, we're gonna clean up. And then hopefully, and thank you, by the way. Yeah, thank you again. And we'll stay in touch and there's
spectator over there.
Yeah.
You got a corner seal on you?
Yeah. And actually, Andy had a corner seal or a seals that he threw into a bucket.
Yeah,
for me,
sure.
so they might be in there. But that's
Always
it.
got spares around.
We're gonna clean up. We're gonna get the RX7 back in the trailer, and we gotta get the R8 to Dan's because tomorrow and pretty much all week we're taking the R8 apart, which is not fun.
A whole nother situation.
Yeah. So, all right, that's it. Thank you. Thank you again.
Absolutely, dude.